Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. Good morning.
Very good morning. Glad to connect again. That's too on Monday morning, your time, and evening my time here. Wonderful. How was your weekend?
It was peaceful. I had a break in a major project where I could actually sit back and relax. I talked to about 225 students across two classes.
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time reading. I've been studying a couple other things that I've discovered in the last 6 weeks that are fascinating. Perhaps we'll talk about those today. And I just enjoyed. I enjoyed the weekend. My children were not in the house. They're adults. And
Uh-huh.
I have one child living with us. He's 26 and going to school, and he was out this weekend. So it was very peaceful. Good energy in the house this weekend. And you?
Wonderful. Mine was good. Well, today itself was a little tense because one of my very close friend, a family friend, uh, he tested positive on COVID. The
Mm,
news came in just an hour back, the test reports, and it wasn't very happy time. I mean, his family is a bit worried, but things are in control. He is in home quarantine, home
mhm. It's scary.
isolation.
It's scary.
Symptoms
It is
on
scary.
COVID. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And in the middle of all this, there is an examination which is coming up that's called NEET, National Eligibility and Entrance Test. And we already thought of talking on this. There is a lot of discussions going on in India. I'm sure you're following in India, quite well, and hence I wanted to talk to you on that piece. So before we do that, I head the team here at Etona Services, and I'm with Tim Jerome. He is a project management expert joining in from Albuquerque, a city in New Mexico. Uh, and yeah, here we are.
Yes, we
Yeah,
are.
so I told you about the pandemic. I mean, it just gave me a news that my very own and very close friend, uh, he is uh, positive respect to the NEET exams, which has been announced to be conducted on 13th of September, uh, uh, next month. I mean September. There are two things happening here, Tim, in India. One, the student fraternity, the student group, they are demanding it for cancellation or postponing it, the dates of the exam, because of the pandemic, because of the COVID situation, wherein the government agencies and the government itself has to be conducted, because we cannot see your 1 year getting wasted just like that. So before we get in there, would you like to help people understand what is NEET examination, and what are the contributing factors for all this talks which is taking a circle in?
Wow, it sounds like you have a mix of things going on. I did a little bit of research, and it was fascinating to see. We don't have quite the same um, testing in the United States, but I can see how valuable it is to a certain extent. It's a gate to the next education level, and it allows you to move forward. We have a general gating, the general
Mhm.
acceptance college entrance exams, but we don't have these like industry specific exams like this NEET. So I have a sense of, how a student may look at these exams as this is going to make or break me, especially when you don't have 50 or 60 years behind you. You see this as almost number one in front of you, insurmountable, and number two, bigger than any event in your life. And now the government is actually ordaining it. It's you can't stand up to the government, especially when you're 19 years old. On top
Mhm.
of that, you have an education framework that says this has to be in place for us to confirm that you're ready for the next step. Now, I do have some questions for you too. So this exam is what has to be passed in order for you to move forward in certain industries. And is that correct?
That's very correct. This is primarily done for the undergrads, graduates, degree holder, and it's basically conducted by one agency, which then distributed to the different departments whosoever is looking out for or who will vacancy. There is a lot of changes which is happening in India, Tim. If you're following up, the education policy is under renovation, I believe. So from the next year, what you're going to see is only one agency taking examination for all. Earlier, we used to have different agencies for different vacancies, primarily related to banking or engineering jobs, right? But now going forward, those all agencies has been merged under one, and there would be only one agency taking examination. NEET is once in the same fraction. So the point is, uh, the question that I want to understand. I know you may not be having a very clear understanding on NEET with respect to India, but then I understand your logics and your paradigms for any examinations remain same, whether it's getting conducted in US or India or any other part of the globe. So I want to understand, Tim, how do you see this, the examinations, which is like a national level examination, to be conducted in the pandemic situation? How do you see this?
Oh boy, this is troublesome. Um, First of all, let's just take the examination itself, and let's take the pandemic off the table for right now. You have an exam that you know you're going to have to prepare for a year. And it's like brushing your teeth every day. It is your constant companion and your constant challenger. It's like walking into a gym and knowing something is going to be in the boxing ring every single day for a year. And you're not going to be able to move forward until you've passed this whole year preparing for it. And that's from the individual level. And now we have basically not just one person doing this, but a group of people, and strangers are going through the same experience you are. Now, you and I've talked about, the real interesting factors when you have a shared event like COVID. This is a shared event that goes on all the time in your society. And so, from not just a personal level, but from a social level, we're experiencing this excitement and tension and stress, and it's low level. And we talked a lot about that stress and the negative impact there. The second thing is all of a sudden we're doing it in a unique situation. And whenever you have something that takes you off balance and leaves you off balance for a certain amount of time, it's like having a ship that you don't have a rudder on and you don't have control over the sails. And how am I going to stabilize? So it's frightening. It's absolutely frightening. I looked at the numbers of people losing their jobs in the United States. And I think the same thing. I have no control over my destiny. And how do I manage that as an individual? And how do I manage this as a group? And this is the direction I'd like to take this, especially under COVID. It thinks this is, I am certain, and we'll talk more about details here. I'm certain this is what we call the new normal right now. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what bad news is going to appear from which city. And still, we must remain optimistic and strong and resilient and progress. And how do we do that without making ourselves ill?
Right.
That's a struggle. And that's exactly what you're asking.
True. How do you see it? If I have to put myself in a student's shoe, let's talk their perspective. How do you think what would be their feeling at the moment?
Oh, like I said, let's go back to the picture I painted just a minute ago. I'm a ship. I'm on a ship in the ocean, and I'm not out of the storm. And this storm has waves that are higher than the top of the boat. Now, the mast still can probably be above the water, but some of these waves could totally destroy this boat. Okay. Now,
Hmm.
I don't have a rudder. I can't steer my boat. My sails, I'm totally out of control of. So if the winds come up, the sails, which usually I have control over, are going to pull me in directions that I don't want to go. And I don't know how to even get a handle on this situation. How do I stabilize? How do I make a rudder in the middle of the storm? And that's what we're asking these people to do. Literally, we're not giving them an advice. And so many people are saying, I don't feel safe. I'm afraid.
Hmm.
And if I make any decision, it's going to destroy my life and my destiny and whatever future family I have and whatever progress. And it's not that they're thinking about this consciously, but it's there, like underneath every conversation they have, every sandwich they eat, every cup of tea they drink. It's going to be there. It's their constant companion, and it's a companion that they don't want. And
Hmm.
that's where the individual is in this situation. I guarantee you. This um, there's a sense of isolation when you feel this ongoing low level tension, and it tends to disconnect you from your support mechanisms. I know this I know this dancing partner very
Hmm.
well.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything similar happening in the US? Have you seen that?
Oh, constantly, constantly. I was observing this. It's very scary in the universities right now. The getting into the universities was a struggle because the last part of all the schools in the United States this year, the last part of graduation in the spring and into the summer, um, was unlike anything before. And schools had to be taught remotely. And they weren't formally taught remotely. They were just trying to get through. And so I know there was a sense with a lot of the students that, am I getting the same education? Am I getting the same value? Am I getting this? And so this carries through to a process that's sort of like ad hoc, that nobody is following through. They're making it up as they're going, and bless them for doing this. But all the universities are trying to figure out day by day, can we let the kids come to the university? Do we have to have 100% remote? How are we going to afford this? How are we going to do events to make kids feel more normal? And they were doing this back in the spring, and it was a constant conversation. And lo and behold, we made it through, and everybody's a little rocky, but the storm's not over. Like I said, we're still in the middle of the storm, and we're on that boat. And the university students here got back, and they had a sense of normality. And what
Uh-huh.
happens? In the university, the poor kids are going, we're getting sick, I'm afraid, I want to go home, I don't want more college. And some of the universities are being very open and scaring the kids and trying to work with the kids through this and processing. And some of the universities are saying, don't you dare talk about this. This is our
Mhm.
problem. It's private. And so there's a diverse response. And it's frightening because the kids are thrust into an adult situation that they don't necessarily have tools for to process through. And again, you can't talk to somebody 17, 18, or 19 as if they're an adult. And you can't talk to them as they're a child either, because they're just acquiring the habits of learning how to process deep
Mhm.
problems and issues and learn how to balance them like a dilemma. How do you teach a child, and how do you teach an adult even, that a dilemma is never going to go away, and the best you can do is balance it. You don't teach those things. It's something that's inherited through experience and shared group events. And we're not giving ourselves this opportunity right now. So, this is going to be a generation that many sociologists and psychiatrists and psychologists are going to be observing for years. This is a rocky time, and it's going to impact us personally and society. And to get back to the NEET exam, you know, it it's a huge emotional, economical, educational impact, not just individuals, but the society as a whole. And it's frightening. There's it and again, as a child, you want to step up and be an adult and solve problems, but how do we support them in that? That's my personal question. How can we reach out and, as individuals and groups, make sure that they get the best chance they can? And what is it, September 13th? That's just right around the corner. That's just 3 weeks away.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it was anyway. Yeah, I mean, the dates were announced, but the only point is it worth taking a risk? I mean, it's definitely a risk the moment you step out of the house. You are actually going into examination center. I did follow news on this, Tim. I did see it was actually done in South Korea. There was an examination which held in, and then there was another country, I forget the name, where they actually did a successful examination conduction in terms of the exams are concerned. I mean, it was a big hall with a lot of space, vacant space. The chairs, the students were ensured that each student has a safe distance between each other. There were sanitizations, there were masks, there were, I mean, all the necessary things which can help to contain this virus. I mean, it was there. Now, I personally feel, I mean, examinations, if it has to be conducted, it should be conducted, provided that the agencies should actually take good care of the environment. They should conduct it in a way that should not allow spread of this disease. That's point number one. That's my take. Second, looking at the geography of India, I mean, it's really, really tough. We are talking about India, Tim. We have 1.3 crore population. See,
Hmm.
to contain that huge number, I talked about the entire population, but yeah, there are approximately 15-20%, which can be considered as uh, the students group. So to contain that huge number, bringing in people from all across uh, the places to the examination center, it would be a challenge for any agency to conduct it. But that's something we have to leave it up to the agencies. We will anyway get
Right,
to know on
right.
13th what the preparations are. But but the fear, uh, but the fear is there,
Let me,
right?
yeah, let me give you another perception of this. Okay, so the project management professional credential is a big project management objective. It's a goal, right? It's for many people, it's very, very influential, as well as a a mark of great respect. It shows you're an expert as a manager and leader. The exam usually, pre-pandemic, you go into a test center, they take everything out of your pockets. You take everything that is your personal identity, and it gets locked up in a lockable cabinet. And then you're ushered to something that looks like a library cubicle. And you sit there for 4 hours, and it's proctored, and you have nothing but paper and pencil and a calculator. Now, we go into the pandemic. Okay. This is scary. They didn't know how to actually do this, and for a long time we couldn't do the test for like 2 or 3 months. And so what occurred was the institute that owns the credential in the exam, Project Management Institute, worked with their test center, the company they work with, Pearson VUE, and they figured out a way that they could do it remotely.
Mhm.
You can actually do this, but the problem is, the onus now is on the person taking the exam. You have to take photographs of your desk to show there's nothing there. People who are proctoring you have to have access 100% of the exam through your microphone and camera. And we're all taught that's not the right thing to do. And so we're breaking all
Mhm.
these conventions in order to do this. It's not going to work the way it has in the past, but we can make it work if we work together. Now, I assume India is going to figure out the best way to do it. And it's probably going to be a blend of a lot of these things, because in the United States, not everybody has the same internet access. And I know India, you face the same thing as well. Um, just the sheer volume of people in the United States. We talk about Los Angeles and New York, and your idea of a city is, oh, Los Angeles, you're cute. I'd like to see you when you really grow up in 1,000 years. And you're really facing these things millennia before other societies are going to. So I expect you're going to be doing the testing. I would, if I was asked, I would recommend do a rolling wave for the mechanics of the testing. It's a random selection, but have these people and these exams staged, not just all at the same time, but over a series of weeks and months. And it's going to have to come to that. If we're going to have to work in isolation, or at least we're going to have to be distancing ourselves for a long time, this is the way it has to be.
Right. I mean, yeah, you rightly mentioned, Tim. I believe it too. I mean, technology has potential to bridge any gap. Uh, I mean, it can actually bridge. The question is the accessibility of that technology to the
Right.
masses, right? I mean, we are yet not sure. uh, how far or what percentage of people have the accessibility of internet, which is the basics of any technology solution that we're going to put in place. But talking about the future, I mean, this is the present anyway, but let's talk about 2 years or 5 years down the lane. What do you think? I mean, is this the new normal? I mean, like Mark the other day, I mean, our talk show, when we were talking to Mark mentioned that it's not a new normal, but it's a new normal crazy world which we see. Now, what do you think the future is looks like? Do
It's
you,
and I hate to tell you this, Kumar, it's unknown. What I do know is that we as a society and a species are prepared for the unknown. For the last 40 or 50 years, we've been preparing for what we thought we knew a future was. As a society and species, we've never operated like that. Let me give you an example. 2200 BC, okay?
mhm,
Um, there's a bunch of societies around the Fertile Crescent, right? The Tigris Euphrates River, and where it joins. And all of a sudden, they're battling each other, of course, like they do, but they also share families and they share dynasties and they trade and that kind of thing. And they have a small mini society, right? Now, what's interesting is that there was a comet that crosses here, right? It's called Hale Bopp. We saw this comet just a few years ago, if you remember. Well, the last time it occurred was about 2200 BC, and everybody said this is very interesting. And it marked the start of something, of basically an event, a climate changed. It didn't change the climate, but it was synchronous with climatic changes. And whether that occurred because of volcanoes or because of changes in the ozone, it doesn't matter. But the climate shifted. Now, at that time, most of the societies had about 90% wheat and 10% barley. Barley's
mhm,
great, but it's no wheat, right? And all of a sudden, with this shift, in order for them to merely survive, they had to learn how to live on 5 to 10% wheat because wheat's not as hardy as barley, and learn how to live on 90% barley. And what do you know they did? The ones that survived well. And again, this happens over and over again. We don't know what's going to happen, but we know there's a barley out there. We know there's a wheat out there that we like now, but
mhm,
may not be there all the time. And so, as a society and as a culture, our fairy tales, our religion, the stories we tell our kids at bedtime are stories about, society that said, we don't have wheat anymore. We're going to live on barley and we're going to like it. And we learned how to overcome that. And we see that also with the end of the Bronze Age in 1200 BC, right? We had another climate change. We have volcanoes. We have something around the Mediterranean Sea called the Sea People. We don't know who
mhm,
they were, but they were causing great discord, and that destroyed 8 civilizations.
mhm,
And only Egypt survived
mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And so we did this, and they had their barley, and they learned how to thrive. They never came back. And then Greece grows, and Greece takes over Egypt for a couple generations, and then Greece falls down, and Rome comes up. And in the middle of this, you have multiple plagues. So, as a society, as a group, we do this really well. What we should do is take a hint from these cyclic approaches, and actually maybe as individuals we can actually learn from society. and make ourselves and our personal lives more resilient. And that's what I've been looking at. How can I take these hints from society in thousands of years, millennia of experience, and help groups of people today and individuals become more resilient and more confident that they are going to thrive? Yes, this is an exam. The NEET is an exam. And yes, these are strange times, but we are the ones going through it today. And we are the ones who are going to determine, our value. It's a
Mhm.
very hard lesson as an individual, but taking ownership of your destiny is one of the highest marks that you can have as an individual. Again, our fairy tales, our religions, the stories we tell our children, all are around people who fell apart, who made mistakes, who failed the exam, and they got up, and regardless of it, they didn't just go on to become something big like they wanted, but they became greater than they could even comprehend. That is the message that we need to share with our children and our students.
Right, right. I'm also thinking the other way around. I mean, uh, this might be possible. The students are not for X, Y reasons, and they just don't want to. They just want to escape the examination. I mean, when I was let me put it this way. When I was a kid, I was trying to skip or escape as many times as possible for my examinations for various reasons and giving out various reasons out there. I mean, everybody has done that. Let's accept that. Now, right now, I'm just thinking, but I still remember uh, 5 out of 10 times. Uh, my father used to accept my reasons. I mean, no matter how stupid it used to be, but he accepted that. Now I'm just thinking about the government. I'm just trying to connect the situation here. Shouldn't government actually accept what students are talking? If it has to be postponed, let's postpone. Is it a big deal? What do you think?
Okay, so government has to progress. Industry and commerce has to move forward. We have no choice, and government is going to have to do what government does. Now, individuals are going to have to do what individuals do. Um, the process is, how do you actually get the two to work in a combination? For instance, one of my first supervisors when I went to work, was a brilliant man. And we would ask him, can we do it this way? And he'd say, yeah, you can do it
Mhm.
once. You can do anything you want once. And that was his response. His response was, you can walk off a cliff once if you want to. You're going to only be able to do it once, but you can. And what he was trying to teach us was that there is no stronger capability than taking ownership of the decisions you make. Now, the government may be in a position be taking ownership of the decisions the students make. But a government that serves its people better is a government that may allow the students to bruise their knees and scrape their elbows a little bit and support them through the process. And that's what my first supervisor was very good at, allowing people to make little mistakes before they make big mistakes, so they can start taking ownership of their decisions, learning not how to rely on a book or a government authority to determine what's wrong or right, but actually participate in the decision making of what's wrong or right. And societies and cultures who have done it this way have taken a longer turn in growing up, but at the same time, they've actually had not just a leader who says, this is what we're going to do, the end, but said, you know what? I don't know the direction. I don't know the best way to do things, but I have a vision. And all of a sudden, you have a bunch of people who can align with that and a bunch of people who have ownership of wrong or right working together. And that's much more powerful. And again, I'm not giving out advice. I'm
Mhm.
just giving you observations. This is how I've seen working groups and organizations and corporations in a healthy manner. It changes everything. It provides the corporation the conviction of the workers. They have ownership and they want to make something that they're proud of. It also provides the individuals simple things like safety. I have a voice. I actually get to participate in things. I have a little bit of control over my destiny. Not a lot, but a little bit of control. And yeah, it's scary and it's harder. But you know what? I put my shoulder and pushed, and that rock moved a little bit. And I feel like I did work that's worthy of being proud of. So it's going to be interesting to see how India, as a government and an education infrastructure, ushers their responsibilities, the students, through this process to either get through at the end or to actually find something newer and better than they've ever had.
Mhm. Let me ask you
It's
this. I have done that many times when I was at school, assuming things. So assume, Tim, you are the prime minister, you are the president of the country. What are the suggestions that you have to give out to the students out
oh boy, what am I gonna say?
there?
Okay, first of all, don't let it stop you. Don't let this scary world stop you, because it's easier to keep moving forward than it is to stop and start and stop and start and stop and start. Even if you move just a centimeter a day, if you're moving forward, you're moving forward. And the sense of moving forward will give you confidence, and it will give you a sense of progress, and it'll give you a sense of fulfillment. That's the first thing. Let's do it together. We're going to make a lot of bad decisions. We're going to make a lot of horrible things that we're going to have to clean up after. And yeah, we'll blame each other because that's what humans do. But at the same time, if we all move together, we'll all have a sense of progress. You as a student, the education facilities as them, and the government as them, and us as a whole. Um, know what you want. Know what you want. I am adamant in this after seeing my children growing up and seeing a lot of other students over 15 or 16 years progress and mature. The ones who actually flourished were the ones who, number one, actually participated in their destiny. Let me explain that. They actually worked really hard to figure out what they were good at, but not only what they were good at, but what they wanted to do. They actually crafted their idea of what they wanted, and they made it big. I'm not talking about $1 million and 50 Cadillacs and that kind of big. I'm talking about, I'm not going to see the end of this. I'm going to work on something and I'm not going to see it. It's legacy work. like legacy work is like you and me talking. Some of the ideas that you and I have, even if we had thousands of people working on them, they're not going to finish at the end of the day. But contributing to it and growing it, and know long after we're gone, it's going to be still growing and thriving. This is the type of work that human beings really search for. And even if you're 15 or 20 years old, you can start that search. And it's a glorious path. The ones who embrace this path are the ones who actually may be a little bit lonely from time to time, and people may not understand them, but they're the ones who set the direction of society. Um,
Mhm.
there are people like you. And this is one thing that I want to stress everybody out there. If you're in isolation and you think you're alone, yeah, maybe physically, but that's all. There's people like you all over the planet. They are. They think like you. They have the same sense of humor. They have the same problems. They're going through the same obstacles. They have the same exam, and search them out and find them right now.
Mhm.
Everybody needs trusted advisors. Somebody who you consider is smart and you don't want to let down, right? You respect them so much that you're going to actually work hard to make them proud of you, because you know that they call you friend. And not only that, but sometimes they challenge you, like in a foot race. They go a little faster than you, so you have to work harder.
Mhm.
And this is what trusted advisors do. And all of a sudden, you're looking for teachers and all that, but all of a sudden you have a group. And you don't have just a group of people, you have a group who take turns being teacher, and you have a group who take turns being student. And this is what we're really good at as human beings. We do this naturally. Follow your instincts and find the people you actually are bonded with. Okay. Next, keep an eye on the obstacles that you're hitting. Give them a name.
Mhm.
It's funny because when you have a little child who has a nightmare over weeks, it's a nameless, scary thing. But once they actually progress night after night through the nightmare, once that scary thing gets effaced, no matter how scary it is, that nightmare goes away. And it's the same thing in our real lives. Once we have an obstacle and name it,
Mhm.
it's not so scary. And it gives us something to work on. Generally, I'm saying this generally now, obstacles actually point us towards our weakness. And if we listen to them and use them as our teachers, they can help us grow in ways that we couldn't grow without them. So, again, like I said earlier in this talk, going into the boxing ring day over day, your obstacle is that person in the boxing ring. But guess what? They're another teacher, they're another mentor. And the people who embrace their obstacles, once again, are the ones who understand what real progress is. It's leaning into our problems and not backing away from them. Yeah, it's scary, but that's
Yeah.
what human beings do. And I there's a couple more. Um, we don't like being alone right now, and we've been alone too long over these last 6 months. But if you have not embraced this, I'd invite you to look at isolation in a little different way. Think about all the great thinkers and great artists and great teachers and great mathematicians who actually embraced isolation and used that as their obstacle. There's something to be said for actually cutting yourself off for a little while, not forever, but for a little while, so you can have these great thoughts and not just think, here's a thought, but actually playing around with it, taking it apart, putting it back together, polishing it, taking it apart, putting it together, polishing it, and looking at it and comparing. These are the ways people become real masters of not just the knowledge they have, but their destinies. This is what I'm describing is all of these things together actually work as a comprehensive whole. And by taking ownership of these skills and tools together, um, we move forward. And we don't know where we're moving forward, but we're going to move forward in the right way. We're made of the same stuff. The people in 2200 BC and the people in 1200 BC were made of, right? The end of the Bronze Age happened because
Hmm.
all of a sudden somebody smart in some village said bronze is expensive and we can't afford it, and this iron is cheap. Is there a way we can actually create, instead of 500 degrees, 1400 degrees? And it wasn't the cities who figured this out, it was the villages. And they actually were the ones who were able to actually, combat bronze with steel. And that was a major tipping point in the transition from 1200 to 1100 BC. The age of steel actually won out. We could actually talk about this more and more and more, but it all boils down to this is what we're made of. We're not we're not top of
Right.
the food chain for no reason. We're good, and our genetics and our history and our society says this is how good we are.
I see. I completely see what you're talking, Tim. Yeah, I mean that's how a society has to be. Let me ask you a final questions. I know you have a class waiting soon after this talk show, so I won't hold you for long. But a final question: uh, What do you think? Will parents be in a comfortable situation to let their kids go out and give out examination in this COVID era? And a question linked to this: when parents should be in sending their kids for examination?
Okay, so this is a personal decision, and let me give you an example. I have two children, right? I have one set of children, one child who's married and said, I'm hunkering down through this. I'm self isolating. I'm staying away from everybody. And everybody who does this is wrong. And I have another child that says, we're helping one family, we're
Mhm.
helping another, we're taking our temperatures twice a day, we're washing our hands, we're isolating, and we're doing it in a knowledgeable manner. And we think this is the right thing. And as a parent, I'm saying, well, there are two right things. Can there be two right things and no wrong things? Can we actually live as a family and actually embrace both those mindsets without the family falling apart? Now, we can do this. We're a strong family and we allow these differences. We're resilient enough to allow this. As a parent, we have to be able to actually think. Number one, you know, I must get into the mind and think like my child and think about what this experience is to help them understand it. And number two, I must allow my child a little bit of flexibility in the decision making so that they can actually learn and grow and experience the results of their decisions. Because if I insert myself, um, then they're not going to be able to be flexible when they make bigger decisions. And again, this is coming back to my comment about society as a whole and government and education. They're the parents in this model. I think Now, this is just one person. This is my opinion, and the way everybody parents is good and it's correct for you. I'm not saying it's wrong if it's not the way I do things, okay? But again, from my experience as well as my studying of history and culture and economics and finance and business and commerce and everything else, it says that if we give a little flexibility, it's scary, and it is going to be scary. But our children have actually been educated to walk across the street without getting run over by cars. Our
Hmm.
children have been educated to learn how to drive a car, and that is almost scarier than COVID. And
Hmm.
if we actually create contracts and create agreements and we're open, it allows our children to participate in the decision making and not just, allows us to observe how decisions are made inside their heads, but what the outcome of their regular decisions are. And it gives them practice in a safe manner. We're not going to let
Hmm.
them fail. We're not going to let them do disastrous things, but we have to allow them a little bit of flexibility. Now, COVID is COVID. And there are things that we are going to do. It's another social contract thing. We're going to wear masks. We're going to self isolate, and we're going to question when we have an exam room that has too many people in it. And that's the right of an individual in a group to do that. Now, the question is, do, getting back to my example of a family, as a family, as a culture and society, are we able to actually be this flexible to say, you're right, and you're right, and you're right, and we can together figure out a solution that embraces all of us? That's going to be tricky. And there's again, we could talk hours and hours about complex problems and how do you solve these deep complex problems. There are economists and mathematicians who've actually put their heads to this, and it's a fascinating study. But this is what leaders of government actually have to consider. It's taking time. It's thinking things through. It's applying focus. And if we want our children and our governments to do this, we have to do this too. It's not just We're not just asking our students to step up. Parents have to also.
Yeah, I think this is more of a two-way traffic, Tim. What you said is correct. I'm just adding my view on top of it. As you rightly mentioned, it's basically the agreement which has to come in place. The agreement is what is it's. If I'm right, you were actually talking about the confidence which people get when two parties talk, right? It's a good agreement. So the government agencies and other various agencies out there, if they are able to put the processes in place, if they are able to be enough so that the students and the parents both start getting that confidence that, hey, you know what, even though if my I'm sending my kids, I mean, there are processes which is in place, the sanitization is there. uh, yeah, I mean, the kid would still remain safe, and anyway, the kids and everybody else in this world is getting educated more on what are the do's and don'ts in this situation. So as you rightly mentioned, I agree on that 110%, saying that, hey, possibly if the agencies start working in and if they're able to evidence, I think the situation can be controlled and can actually become normal. I mean, yeah, people can send kids to the examination centers, and the kids can also go to examination centers without any hesitations, and examinations can be conducted. The life can become normal some
And
way.
if it's open and everybody participates in this and everybody communicates and shares information, all of a sudden it's not so scary. The first students are going to be the brave ones, and the rest of the students are going to be saying, oh, okay, yeah, it's different, but they survived and it's going to be all right. And then the parents are going to be talking. What we need to do is, again, it's opening these channels of conversation and having these ongoing communications, not just between you and me, and not just between us and our audience, but having these conversations that we can actually say this is common. And the communication, we're back to that whole concept of trusted advisor. We're all each other's trusted advisors, and that gives us the confidence, and the clarity that we can actually progress, both as students and as
Right.
parents and families and as a society.
Yep. So with this note, let's wish all the candidates and all the students out there to get prepared. Wish them luck and takes necessary steps to ensure that you are safe and you give examination in the best uh, uh, sanitized environment so that
And to
everything
you
comes good.
also, students. Yeah, and to you students also out there, if you want to talk more about this, please do. Please do. And if you want to talk to me and Kumar more about this, we can actually talk about this. And it is scary. But remember this, it's just like every other decision in life. It looks like you're jumping off a cliff, but in hindsight, looking back, you're stepping off of an 8-inch ledge that
Right.
is easy to step over. It's just one more step of 10,000 you're going to make.
All right. Thanks for your time, Tim. I really appreciate that. I know you have a it's a remote class that you take.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, people will get
I'll
interested.
enjoy myself. I'll be thinking of you and the students out there. And again, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Kumar, and looking forward to talking to you and our friend Mark, Dr. Mark, on Thursday. It's going to be a joy.
Yep, yep. Thank you so much, and once again, wish you all good luck, students, for the NEET examinations. Yeah, do well. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Have a good day.